Well, well, well. Look who's back. Both me and this show, actually. I had a whole slate of videos planned for Black History Month, but then Has Been Hotel aired, and I had to talk about that twice. And then my laptop decided functioning properly was simply overrated. But I'm back with a new system and a backlog of video ideas. Do you think my voice sounds different? Regardless, I am here, so let's go. Moon Girl Season 2 dropped this February, and it was mostly how I remember it. Bombastic action, surreal music video climaxes, and the use of superhero drama to explore Lunella's interpersonal relationships. Of course, there were some changes from the first season. The Beyonder's role has changed significantly, and a lot of new elements and ideas were added. But the most notable thing about Season 2 to me is that it really wanted to put Lunella through the ringer, as a person and as a young hero. Growing up is a really difficult thing to do, with all the different pressures and realities of life pressing down on you. Even with the extreme advantage of being the smartest person on earth, Lunella is not immune to the emotions of being a teen trying to find her way and a superhero constantly throwing themselves into danger. The premiere, The Great Beyonder, really exemplifies this conflict, as Lunella is not only forced to babysit the now powerless Beyonder and despair at the possibility she may never see her family again, but also battle all sorts of serious threats, all leading up to Molecule Man, an alien who is angry at the Beyonder for his reckless destruction of the planet he had made his home. Something the show doesn't really take the Beyonder to task for. Lunella is basically powerless against Molecule Man, and she gets absolutely wrecked and traumatized. Forced away from the small scale of the LES, Moon Girl has to look up into the incredible danger of the multiverse. And I must say, I'm not a fan of how this show introduces the multiverse. It feels like the writers went, the whole universe may be scary, but you know what's scarier? The multiple universes, and just rolled with it. If not for the ultimately pointless inclusion of Devil Girl and Moon Dinosaur, who can just easily communicate across and travel the multiverse, I guess, you could just say galaxy and nothing in the episode would really change. If anything, it would probably make more sense. But back to Moon Girl. She becomes another in a long line of the now meme discussion of portraying panic attacks in children's animation, as Molecule Man puts a lot of fear of the wider multiverse into her. Even the episode's music video is basically about how hopeless the fight is.
Take your defeat, you won't win, you better run and hide.
And this isn't just some minor thing she has to experience before the show snaps back to the status quo. It directly leads into the conflict of the second episode and the finale, as Moon Girl's trauma causes her to lose a lot of her confidence as a hero, and she becomes too afraid to really function, but also doesn't want to tell anyone what really happened. In episode 2, Suit Up, she tries to compensate for her lack of confidence with a new suit that's being made for her by tacking on more and more armor and tech to the point where the whole thing just becomes a hindrance. And that's when her grandmother imparts a lesson on confidence using a nearby bird to teach it.
You see that bird over there? Anything could happen. That branch could break. But that's okay. Because the bird doesn't need to trust the branch when it trusts its own wings.
Lunella doesn't need better armor and weapons. Okay, she does. But she doesn't need so much of it because Moon Girl's superheroics come from her brain and her courage. Regardless of ability, insecurity and a lack of confidence can still afflict anyone. But you should never let that stop you from growing or reaching your goal, because sometimes you just have to trust in yourself. It's an easy enough lesson to learn when you're an experienced superhero, but episode 9, In the Heist, has Lunella have to teach it to one of her classmates when he loses confidence, as they plan to rob a museum of an apocalyptic death crystal. People who haven't watched the show and are watching this video for some reason must be very confused about what I just said, but I promise you, it's weirder than you think. Episode 4, Ride or Die, has Lunella have to escort a villain across New York to S.H.I.E.L.D. because no one can come pick her up, and they take the subway. And then Lady Bullseye shows up, a villain I really know nothing about, but she does belong to a very exclusive club in the show of being a villain whose name I knew before I watched the show. And meanwhile, Devil and Casey are sneaking around to watch what I think is some sort of British telenovela which from what I could tell was only a little more convoluted than real telenovelas. But in reality, episode 4 is really just a whole exploration about the kind of desperation that can drive people to crime and how hard it is to come back from that and rejoin a society that doesn't really want to give you a chance. It works in helping Lunella learn a lot more about, trying to understand the villain she's fighting. Yeah, the show never slowed down on its social messaging, and it still mostly works. All this comes together in the finale, the molecular level, with Lunella having to face down Molecule Man. A conflict made complicated by the fact that she just told her family about being Moon Girl seconds before he attacked. So she has to protect her family against their desire to protect her and deal with the source of her lack of confidence. A battle she manages to win, proving herself, all while displaying empathy in helping Molecule Man heal from his own anger at the destruction of his planet and even giving him the power to possibly undo it. It's an encapsulation of the ideas that make up quite a few of the season's relatively episodic adventures.
Gotta stay and fight. And when I look deep in my heart, I know it's all inside.
Lunella's trauma at the idea of the scale of enemies she could one day have to face isn't the only challenge she has to deal with. Episode 7, Make It, Don't Break It, turns the pressure up as Lunella's new science teacher, a woman from Wakanda, becomes her mentor in a robot building competition and proceeds to destroy the young girl under the weight of expectations of perfection. Although I gotta say, knowing that Lunella is the smartest person on the planet, at a point I found Dr. Ojo's already unreasonable standards to just go beyond the pale. Then again, I don't have any experience with any teachers like this, so people who do may find it realistic. Like, honestly, what do you want, woman? And why are you giving zero advice or education to your students? Are you just a terrible teacher? Actually, given what we learn later, she honestly might not even actually be a teacher. The episode even goes out of its way to contrast her with Coach Herbeck, who is not a science teacher and is honestly just trying his best teaching this subject he's not very familiar with. But he actually knows how to encourage children, leading up to his team of students and their robot being the ones to help Devil beat the villain while Lunella spirals. That being said, the portrayal of Lunella's doubts was excellent, with the chalkboard style display of dripping water making the feelings of inadequacy just hit even harder as we see Lunella literally sink into despair. And when her robot falls apart so completely due to her failed attempts at perfection, Lunella's reaction of simply shutting down and retreating into her mind was just heart-wrenching. It doesn't really matter that Lunella is really great. It honestly doesn't even matter that she's the best. Because being told you aren't good enough by someone you actually respect can be incredibly crushing. Fortunately, the episode's music video snaps out of it. The episode also sets up the idea of Lunella joining some sort of young international spies organization for Wakanda, an idea that kind of reminds me of how much I'm not really a fan of the MCU's version of Wakanda. Like, I'm gonna be honest, the only reason people celebrate MCU Wakanda as much as they do is because it's populated by Africans and the main military force we see in it is made up of women. I really hope we don't get a repeat of that in this show. But of course, there are still yet more episodes for the show to cover and yet more growing up for Lunella to do. We get an exploration of peer pressure and the fear of not fitting in episode 12, Dancing with Myself, but before that, we'll need some backstory. In episode 5, Kid Kree, Moon Girl meets and battles Kid Kree, a genius Kree trainee tasked with defeating and capturing her to prove himself to his father, Blue Omni-Man. What you really need to know is that Kid Kree, or Melvar, or Marvin, is a love interest introduced in the episode who has a lot in common with Lunella. Oh my god, Casey's face. Now that you have the backstory, we can move back, forward to episode 12. In it, Lunella's class is gonna be attending their first school dance. All seems relatively normal until Lunella finds herself being the only person not pairing off with a date for it. Feeling the pressure, she tries to fit in by getting a date. First she asks Eduardo, who unfortunately already has a date. She tries to make sure she won't be alone by hanging with Casey, but she's gonna be too busy basically running the whole dance. She tries to clone a date from her favorite musician, but the crime against humanity she produces is hardly presentable. At some point, even Devil points out that she really shouldn't be trying so hard to go along with the crowd. And she resolves to try not to, but being the only one alone very clearly gets to her. Everyone else having a date makes her feel uncomfortable trying to have fun just by herself. And then Marvin crash lands outside the school on the run from torture-happy Mothmen. And Lunella does kind of a bad thing, which is great for her character. She basically succumbs to the pressure of everyone else having a date and winds up pressuring him into doing date things with her in an effort to feel normal, disguised as an attempt to camouflage himself from the aliens hunting him. And while both of these kids clearly like each other, they both do not think they are ready to actually date anyone. And it turns out, a lot of people weren't, because some of Lunella's friends only felt the need to get dates for the dance because they thought others would. It's an exploration of peer pressure and the feelings of being compelled to do things because other people are doing it. It's similar, but not quite the same as the lessons learned in episode 6, Wishtar, which is about the need to chase ever-moving trends to keep up with the Joneses, whoever they are. Lunella lets access to a powerful wish-granting machine in that episode get to her head as she tries to keep up with frankly supernaturally fast-moving trends, and even makes herself the trendsetter, until poor wording and an evil piano ruin everything. This is actually what I consider a good example of someone learning what appears to be the same lesson twice. Putting aside that peer pressure and not fitting in are really hard to get over, the nuances of the need to fit in and the differences between obtaining material positions and trying to date someone keeps it from really feeling repetitive. Honestly, with this show, I could probably go into more detail, and I probably will in future videos, but safe to say, Moon Girl is still going strong as a story, and with the cliffhanger ending of the season with Lunella's mom telling her that she can't be Moon Girl anymore, there's still more to come in her journey of growing up super. But how about you tell me your thoughts on Moon Girl's new season down below in the comment section, and while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you, and good day.